Hello everyone and welcome back to the DCAF podcast. As always, I'm your host, Nigel Tommy, and today I'm joined, of course, by my two co-hosts, Fuzzy and Charles.
Hello.
Hello everyone. But we are also joined by a special guest from the Duck Civilization Air Control, also known as our Air Force, Arthur Hugh.
Hello, everyone.
Now, we were thinking of maybe bringing Jenkins on, considering he is one of our greatest pilots, maybe even our greatest pilot, or maybe Mitchell, since he's our main aircraft designer. That would also be interesting, but we decided to just go up and get, the leader of the Air Force to explain things.
Also, you're a veteran like me, so you know a lot about the history of the Air Force, and that would definitely be handy.
Usually how these episodes goes, we introduce a topic, and we talk about how it came to exist, and then some other things about it. Hey, I am aware how a podcast works. You'll need to over-explain it to me.
No, to be fair, not all podcasts work like this, but, alright. Now let's start with the elephant in the room. Why are you called the DCAC? The Duck Civilization Air Control, and not the Duck Civilization Air Force?
Well, lad, if there's one person who should know that should be you. Because that acronym was already taken by the ground forces.
To be fair, I think the DCAF refers to all parts of the army. It refers to the armored forces of the Duck Civilization, which includes air and naval. It is also commonly used to refer to our ground forces.
What are we actually called then? The DCGF? Duck Civilization Ground Forces?
I have no clue.
But right, when did the Air Force start? Because, no offence, but you kind of look like you've been a part of it since it started.
Hey, don't worry about it, lad. Although you are correct, I started it with the Air Force in its early days. Although back then I wasn't the leader of it, I wasn't in charge. I was a mere pilot. But basically, as soon as we could slap guns onto aircraft, we had an Air Force. God, I do not want to imagine what those early days of the Air Force were like. Sounds scary.
The Air Force really only came to its own once the Desert War started.
Aye, that was the first major conflict that we could use aircraft in. Before that, it was all small-scale stuff. It was all on land.
And, of course, the Air Force consisted out of one singular plane, the Scrapper A1.
Well, that's not quite true. Although, yes, most of your old Air Force was Scrapper A1s. There were also other things. We had a Subwoof Camel, and, of course, a bunch of modifications for the Scrapper A1.
Looks like some things never change.
I just swap out the A1 for NATO. And you basically have what we have now as an Air Force. Just a bunch of modifications of what I'm playing.
Your designer does actually do stuff, right? And it's not some kind of inventor that wastes its time making automatic cheese cutters.
No, don't be silly. What do you think we are, the Navy? No, Mitchell's a fine chap. And he's made some very good aircraft designs. It's just that we don't have the production capabilities to make a lot. So it takes a long time before the designs are made and then go to the factory. And then prototypes get built and you get it. It's a long, painful process that, I'm pretty happy with where we are currently standing, but if you want to get a new design out, it's not very fast.
Yeah, that much is clear. So you do what you can by modifying the planes you already have instead of building new ones.
Exactly.
I see.
Another question about the Air Force in its early days. You might be more knowledgeable on this because Charles mentioned it, but was the Red Vixen a real person?
Aye, he was a real person.
Do you know who it was then?
No, I've got no clue, but come on. In those days, we're all men. Even now.
I guess that's fair.
But no, I've seen him. The Red Vixen. Charging up into the sky with the modified Scrapper A1. Bright red. With grey shiny wings. A real menace.
It wasn't enough fighting alongside.
Excuse me, you were still fighting in the desert war? That wasn't terribly long ago.
It took some convincing, but I managed to get myself back into the air. Sadly, I don't think I'll be able to do that anymore. A real shame too, because I love flying. Yes, I wouldn't be part of the Air Force now, would I?
Yes. But it's alright. That's a bit about the past. Scrapper A1's an amazing legendary pilot. And overall, you were pretty good back in those days.
Hey.
So, let's go forward in time a bit to now. How are things looking?
Well, like I said, we have a fuck ton of Scrapper A2s. Or as we call them, MFP-10s. They're fine planes. Absolutely, but I bet Mitchell can cook up something better. Hell, one of our old designers cooked up something better. It was called the Air Destroyer or something like that. I forget. As it's no longer with us, we only had one prototype. And he took it with him when he left the Air Force.
So he literally took off.
For a lack of a better term, yeah. Along with his friend. Although we were able to salvage one of his designs.
I think I know what you're talking about. The guy who flew off, who built the Air Destroyer, also made a couple of designs for the army. Oh yes, the scout vehicle we mentioned in the last episode. He also made some other vehicles, which were less good, and we also weren't able to salvage. Same with the stuff that his friend made.
Aye, we were able to actually salvage something there. We actually started producing one of the things he built, which was a bomber called the Voltcracker. Considering we only have the MVP-1, we needed a few more bombers, so anything that we could get our hands on was good enough.
I see. I think I've seen the Voltcracker before, just this big grey box with VC on the side.
Hey, that on one side it's CV, because they didn't mirror it for some reason. It makes no sense, but hey, you've seen it before.
Yeah. If I remember correctly, it has an interesting tale, to say the least.
Hey, it's basically just like an upside down T. How the thing manages to generate any lift at all is amazing, but hey, we have it, and it's a bomber, so good enough.
Well, don't know if you can let us in on this, but are there any new planes being developed?
Hey, we are busy with some sort of transport plane that could also maybe double as a bomber. Kill two birds with one stone. And also, we're thinking of making a dive bomber. Mitchell's been throwing plans around for that for quite some time, so who knows?
Didn't Duckmany give you blueprints for like a jet at some point?
Aye, we just haven't really gotten around to it, especially considering we're still testing jets.
And with testing jets, you mean flying an old Duckman jet around in circles?
Basically, aye. But aye, we might look further into that and actually build a thing. But currently, I'm pretty happy with what we've got. If we could get our Air Destroyer back, that would be perfect.
Can't you, reverse engineer it?
Well, we only have one picture of the thing, and the blueprints are far gone, so I guess we could try it, but I thought we'd be able to make it work as well as the original.
Well, you never know, it's worth a shot.
I suppose.
Well, I think we've already ran out of topics. There's not much really to talk about with the Air Force.
I mean, it is a rather small facet. At least the Navy has an interesting history behind it.
True. The Army's been involved in a lot of conflicts and has a lot of material and vehicles you could talk about, but the Air Force is a bit limited in that sense.
Aye, as much as I hate to admit that's true, we don't exactly have the most interesting history or vehicles or anything really.
Well, you do have quite interesting people working for you.
I suppose you've got a point there, lad, but can we really talk about them without them being here?
I don't see why not. So, who are some chaps in the Air Force?
Well, of course you got me, Arthur Hugh, the one in charge of all this nonsense. Then you've got our best pilot, Jenkins. I've seen him pull off some amazing stunts. He's also quite resilient when testing new prototypes in the crash, because they were built faulty or there was a problem in their design. He always gets back up.
Right, truly a force to be reckoned with.
Aye, I assume he'd make a fine ace.
Well, I wish him best of luck.
There's also another pilot called Roy. He's alright, I guess. Doesn't really do that much. He kinda fades into the background, really, but he's a fine chap. Not much to say about the lad.
Then, of course, you've got your aircraft designer.
Hey, Mitchell. He's a bit eccentric, but he gets the job done. And his designs are quite good.
What has he made, exactly, if I may ask?
Well, one of his first designs was the MVP, which you can kind of tell, but besides that, he's been in charge of everything, really. In charge of every new plane that's come to exist, and also the upgrading of older models. So he did not make the MFP-10? No, Larry. He did not. In fact, he despises that thing. It's the worst thing in our Air Force, and I don't blame him.
Who was responsible for designing that?
Believe it or not, it was one of your tank boys.
So, wait, someone from our design team?
Yeah. We were in need for new planes, and, we just called up and were like, hey, think any of you boys can make a plane? And well, one step forward they made the MFP-10.
Guess they did not actually know how to make a plane.
No, but it's the first domestically produced aircraft in the Dutch civilization.
What about a Camel?
Those were all made in the Foxlands.
I guess that's true. I mean, the Foxlands and the Dutch civilization are basically the same, but if you want to get technical, I guess you've got a point.
Well, I was just thinking about it, and I just counted. I think you only have 5 models of aircraft,
not including any variants.
Hey, that might be correct.
Because let's see, we've got the MFPS1, or the Scrap Array 1, the MFP-10, the MFP-01, which is the Scrap Array 2, the MBP-1, which is your bomber, the Vault Cracker, and that new grey fighter which its name I forget.
Let's not forget we also still have the Sopwith Camel.
Right, so that makes it 6.
And we're about to get 2 or 3 more. If you count the document prototype which we have for our jet experiments, I guess that means 7.
Plus the 2 you are going to get, that would mean 9 models.
It also depends on if you count the variants for the Scrap Array 1, because those were entirely different beasts. You could even argue that the later variants of this Scrap Array 2 are different planes.
Perhaps, but at its core there's still a Scrap Array 1 and a Scrap Array 2, so I wouldn't count them.
I guess that's fair.
Well, I hate to say it, but I think we're going to have to end it here, because we've simply ran out of things to talk about. I have a feeling this is going to be a slightly shorter episode.
I am dreadfully sorry that the Air Force is not that interesting.
Well, that may be true, but, it was fun.
Aye, and it's an important part of our forces.
True. You're going to be the ones going up against the Duckman Air Force, so you're quite important.
Hey, I don't think you could just stop them with your anti-air tanks.
No, we didn't even have that many. Yeah, I think we have 1.
That is not good. Maybe you should invest a bit more in anti-air.
You've got a fair point. I'll bring it up with the rest of the armoured board and our designers sometime. I'm sure they can whip something up. Oh dear God, they're gonna slap a fur on a junk tank. Well, now they're definitely going to do that since you mentioned it, Charles.
Aye, I just remembered something. I forgot to mention someone.
What? The Red Vixen?
Well, I guess that too, but I can't really say much about them. I can't really say much about him because, I don't know him. I don't know him. But what I do know is Skipper. He's a part of our bomber command.
Skipper? I've never seen him.
No, he likes to stay in the shadows, but he's a fine lad. Again, a bit strange, but that seems to be a running theme within the Air Force.
You could argue it's a running theme throughout the entirety of the DCAF, or even the entire Dutch civilization. Well, now, Charles, I wouldn't call my entire country weird, but it does have its odd moments. Well, I'm afraid I'll have to end it here. Thank you for watching and listening to this episode of the DCAF podcast. Thank you, Arthur, for being with us today and telling a bit about the Air Force. And as always, if you have any topics, questions, you name it, leave it down in the comments below, and who knows, we might talk about it in the next episode. Actually, maybe not, unless your questions are strictly Navy related, because the next one's going to be about the Dutch civilization marine. Didn't we already have one about the Navy?
Well, yes, but that was about the Dutch States Navy. This is going to be about our Navy. I didn't mention it. The Navy and the Air Force get along quite well, right? Aye, we've shared a few planes with them. We've gifted them a few of our latest Scrapper A2 models, since the Marine also has to do air attacks sometimes. So they've got a small air force of their own. They've been waiting for quite some time now for some dive bombers.
Yes, those can be very useful in naval engagements.
But right, it was a pleasure being here.
Yeah.
Well, goodbye everyone.
Well, we should have a normal ending for once. Meet up with the rest of the armoured board and all designers sometime. I'm sure they can whip something up. Oh dear God, they're gonna slap a fit on the junk tank. Well, now they're definitely going to do that since you mentioned it, Charles.